Hey folks, today we're getting the Wandering Nobles Event Pack DLC release for Crusader Kings 3. This is the last part of the Chapter 3 DLC if you bought that Season Pass. We are also getting the free 1.14 Traverse update. As always, the paid DLC and then the free stuff that comes alongside it. So I'm going to do a full breakdown of everything we're getting today. So the first part is the expansion features. This is the paid content that you have to have the event pack for. And the major part of this is the new lifestyle, which is Wandering. This is split into 3 separate trees. I did a full video last week covering the entirety of these trees, all the bonuses, my thoughts, and all that kind of stuff. So if you are interested in a bit more of a breakdown, do go back and watch that video. I'll leave it as a link in the description down below. But a quick overview of them is Inspector is the first tree. Landed characters can survey and improve their realm. Landless characters can specialize in a terrain type. So this one's interesting. It is actually 2 entirely different trees depending if you're landless or landed. I will say the next 2 are really focused on landed characters. This entire DLC is mainly focused on landed characters. But for Inspector, they did make a landless character version of it. So that is pretty cool. The next one is Wayfarer. Travel to reduce stress and pursue fame for your exploits. And Voyager is the last one. Improve logistic skills and live the life of a tourist and sightseer. And as part of these lifestyle trees, each one of them is going to unlock a corresponding activity. These are like mini versions of the activities we have now. So Inspectors, they unlock inspections where you can examine your realm and pursue improvements. Wayfarers unlock hikes. This will reduce stress with a walk in the wilderness. And Voyagers, they unlock monument expeditions where you can set forth to visit special buildings in other realms. So any special buildings like Hadrian's Wall, the Colosseum, all these kind of places on the map that are special buildings, you could travel out to them and have some adventures. And then the last part, new events connected to travel, the new lifestyle trees, and the associated activities we just talked about. So that is all the paid content coming as part of this event pack. Again, it is just an event pack, so there isn't crazy amounts of content here. You'll have to let me know if you think it's worth it or not. Again, if you bought the Chapter 3 Season Pass, you're getting this as part of that content. And then on top of that, we are getting the free features of this DLC. These are things I've covered recently on the channel, but we will go through the full patch notes here. So added a new set of buildings, breweries, available to Catholic temples, a building that gives a lot of countrywide bonuses. And then linked to this, they've also added a new cultural tradition, Brewing Culture, that allows you to unlock breweries for cities of your culture. So by default, only Catholic temples will get these breweries as you start playing the game, but you can get this cultural tradition where you can build them outside of being Catholic if you do pick up that culture. And then linked to both of those is a new court position, the Court Brewmaster, which has 3 court position tasks. That is empty the cellars, share with the court, and experimental brew, which will give you different bonuses depending on which one you pick. They've also added a bunch of new decisions. The first is to merge the kingdoms of France and Aquitaine in the 867 bookmark, and there is a change later on kind of linked to that as well. They've also added a decision to restore the Bosphorian kingdom, which is pretty cool. And then the next is an addition to a current feature, that is the points of interest system. They've added a new version of this, which is battle. And you can see here there are currently 11 historical battle points of interest. You can see them listed. There's the Battle of Tours, the Battle of Stamford Bridge, the Battle of Hastings, and these are new places that when you travel to them, you're going to get a little historical UI that tells you about these historical battles, and you can read about them, and your character's going to get some XP based on them. And then the next part of this, which is really cool, is that they've added a dynamic battle points of interest system, where particularly large and bloody battles will be remembered and be able to be visited after the fact. So they have these 11 historical major battles, but then as you're playing through your campaigns, if there are these large epic battles, later on, later generations can also visit that place, and it will say this battle happened in 1025. It was between these 2 armies. This is what happened. And you can have like dynamic historical kind of like information being built up on your map, which is really cool. It'd be interesting to see exactly how many of these actually spawn, how often they happen. I hope they don't happen too often. There's only 11 historical ones, so I don't want these spammed out across the map like crazy. But they are really cool things where later on you could go back to historical battles you fought, or maybe if you're just exploring the map as a wanderer or something, you'd be able to see like, oh, this battle happened. I didn't even know that happened. Oh, it was between these 2 empires. That's pretty cool. Maybe like Crusades and things like that, you'll see that if you weren't part of them, you can see where historically they happened. So again, we'll see how that works out in game, but I really like this edition, bringing some like dynamic history depending on how your map plays out in that campaign. And then the last part of the free DLC is added a salacious Grand Wedding event chain, so making Grand Weddings that little bit more interesting. It looks like there's going to be some spicy events potentially happening there. Next is all the bug fixes. Now, there isn't really that many interesting ones here. They've just added some flavorization, title tier names for landless adventurers. They've also made sure the Pope is named correctly in all events, and then some other just general bug fixes. Most of the bug fixes were in the last patch that we had. Was it last week or the week before? That was a pretty huge bug fix list, but this time just added a few little bug fixes here or there. The next part is balance. There's some pretty big changes here actually, even though there aren't that many actual changes. So placing bets on chariot races no longer grants or reduces stress. This is a great change. I do like the stress system. It makes you play characters based on their traits and characteristics, but I think for minor things like placing bets, it doesn't really make sense that it would affect stress in that way, so I'm kind of glad that one's gone. The next few are pretty big changes. So journals are now a new type of inventory artifact. Only one journal can be equipped at a time. Many books that were previously trinkets are now considered journals. Before I talk about that, we'll do the next one. Family Chronicles are now generally better with better modifiers. They're also now considered books if you have a court, or journals if you don't. So these two really linked together are a pretty big balance change. You could stack a lot of these journals with the same bonuses and get like crazy modifier stacking, which is something they've always talked about trying to get rid of. And I think making these journals be only one equipable at a time is a good change. I know some of you are going to be saying, I liked having all these same books together. It was cool. You could really like focus your character on one stat, but it was really overpowered if you were able to stack a bunch of them that were similar. So I think this was a welcome change, making them only equipable one at a time so you can't crazily stack them. But the second change there is actually a good side of this. Because you can only equip one of them at a time, they can actually make the books better now because they don't have to worry about you stacking them. So books that were relatively weak or could potentially be weak now hopefully will be better. So yes, you can only have one of them, but it will actually be really good rather than stacking like 4 of them to make something that was overpowered. We'll see how it actually works out in game, but I think this is a good change. It will hopefully help with things later on in the game as well, future DLC, because again, they know you can only have one of these equipped, so they can make them better or more interesting, and they won't always be wondering about you being able to have weird combinations of them to make some crazy powerful modifier stacking. But anyway, we'll see how that plays out. The next change is artifacts that boost terrain advantage now give significantly more boost to that terrain. So this is a great change. I wonder if this is coming in because of the Inspector lifestyle, the new one that's coming in. In that system, you can specify a certain bit of terrain, and you can really stack up some really good modifiers based on that. You could specialize on a certain terrain type. So I wonder if this is to kind of counteract that if you don't own the DLC, or if you just don't want to go down that type of DLC. I'm not too sure, but again, this is a good change, making them a little bit more impactful. The next change is linked to the thing I was talking about earlier. The Kingdom of Aquitaine is now de jure part of France. I'm not sure why it's taken till now since the launch of the game for this change to be made. Someone can let me know in the comments down below. I'm guessing this is historically true. I don't actually know off the top of my head, but I guess a cool change there. And then the last part is rebalanced inbred pure-blooded chance due to the inbreeding risk now being calculated based on the degree of relatedness instead of the number of missing ancestors. I would imagine, just going off the wording, this is going to make those more likely to happen. So you're more likely to get inbred characters, more likely to get pure-blooded characters. We'll have to see how it plays out in our campaigns. But it was pretty hard to get inbred, even if you were kind of going for the achievement and things like that. So I would think this is just making those more likely to happen. Again, we'll see actually in the game. And then the last part of the DLC is just the new art. As you can see, a bunch of new art added for the new core positions, the Brewmaster, the new buildings, the new Wanderer lifestyles, all the art linked to that, and then some new event backgrounds based on the new activities. And then there is also 2 new animations, Survey with a Walking Stick and Idle with a Walking Stick, so you can play out your Gandalf role-playing as much as you want in-game. And with that, that is the end of the patch notes for this free DLC and the paid content. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Let me know if you're going to pick this up. I think it does look pretty good. Is it worth the price? It's always up to you to decide that. I think the new Wandering lifestyle does look good. If you want more information about that, as I said earlier, do watch my video from last week where I did a full breakdown of it. But again, this is all part of the Chapter 3 DLC, so if you did buy that Season Pass, you are getting this. This is the last part of that. So with all that content wrapping up, I will be doing my usual end-of-year videos coming out soon. That'll be the review of the Chapter Pass, how I think it did, what I think is coming next year, and I might even do a new tier list. Haven't done a tier list for a while of all the current DLC, redoing that video and seeing where I think things land at the moment. But anyway, hit that like button if you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new here. A lot of Crusader Kings on the channel. I'm also covering EU5 as that ramps up to announcement and launch. But yeah, I'll leave it there for today. Hopefully you enjoy the DLC if you pick it up, or the free patch if you don't. But I'll see you in the next video.